The things that we find where a lot of people that we come across are driven to be successful by some of the things that happen to us, as you say, to go into that mode. And then we get to a point where we find that actually it's not serving us as well, maybe as we thought in our key relationships.
I think the biggest learning for me was to have a positive look and an optimistic look. So he really taught me that no matter what happens in life, also the difficult parts, there is, if you lose the judgment around that, there is a wonderful learning within that.
Tell us a bit more about what experiences in your earlier life shaped that leadership style that developed for you. It was very clear what it was you were here to do in terms of sharing wisdom, but in terms of the way you led yourself and others through that, just talk to us about that.
If I would go and meet a group of people, my hands would totally be wet already. I was a very introvert person. And also I had my share of own childhood trauma going on, and very young on to become a therapist was probably not a conscious decision, but I was in my family trying to deal with a manic depressed mother.
Hello, and welcome to Confessions of a Successful Leader, hosted by me, Andrew Tallents, the self-coaching expert. In each episode of the show, we hear the insightful confessions of a successful leader who wants to inspire others to live their professional and personal dreams. I am always keen to hear your feedback, particularly in relation to the kinds of leaders you would like me to invite onto the show in future. But for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the rich insights from our special guest. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Confessions of a Successful Leader, hosted by me, Andrew Tallents, the self-coaching expert. I'm delighted that Loes Fokker has joined me in the studio today. Loes is an international organisational psychologist, YPO certified forum facilitator, corporate culture expert, and co-founder of the Argonauts. With over 2 decades of experience, Loes has made it her life's mission to inspire leaders and their organisations to raise their collective potential and wisdom. As an entrepreneur, Loes has been involved in building 3 internationally operating companies. She describes herself as a world citizen, as she originates from a diversity of cultures, being born in Suriname with Chinese, Indian, African, Dutch and Indonesian roots, and being raised in the Netherlands. She received a holistic education by a spiritual father and an academic study as clinical and health psychologist, and a system and relationship therapist. She is a mother to 2 beautiful children, Diego and Haley, and in a loving and nurturing relationship with Stefan. Together, they founded the Argonauts in 2019, a community that breathes new life into the way deep human connection is cultivated in the 21st century. She considers herself to be a spiritual being with a very solid base in the practical world. And it's a pleasure, Loes, to welcome you to the show.
So nice. Thank you, Andrew, for taking the time. Pleasure to talk to you.
Now, obviously, shared with the audience there something about you, but what else can you share which will give them a sense of who you are as a human being?
Oh wow, that's a nice broad question. Where to start? Well, if I normally meet somebody new, then instead of going over, I'm married, this is my age, and so I prefer to always go straight to. So, what's your purpose in life? And maybe to dazzle a little bit, but no, I think that would be a good start to get to know each other. Not that you always have to have a purpose in life. I think it would also just be beautiful just to be yourself instead of going to something in the future. But I think it does say something about me that when I was very young, like 6, 7 years old, for me, it was super clear what I want to do here. And of course, that is always related to your context. So with me, for example, in my house, a lot of different kind of healers and psychologists and people that were working with people were always the friends of my father coming into the house and doing workshops together. And I saw that. For me, it was always about clear that there was so much wisdom in the world, but like everybody's just having their own view upon a certain part of that wisdom. No matter if it's throughout cultures or throughout time. And for me, it was very clear, like, what would happen if we would just share that wisdom with each other? What is then possible from that space? And that's basically guided me in all my decisions from then.
Lovely. And outside of your work and your dedication and living through your purpose, what do you do to relax, switch off? What kind of things do you do?
Okay, that's also a nice one. I actually just went for 3 weeks to the middle of the Amazon in my birth country, Suriname.
Wow.
And that, I would say, to really switch off was an amazing experience. No Wi-Fi possible, and what that immediately does with, well, myself, but also with the connection that I have with my husband, um, to deeply connect and have just really good conversations with each other was absolutely amazing. I do that since a couple of years, that at least once per year I take a journey, preferable with myself, and absolutely switch off with everything. And next to that, I think it's about the daily habits. No? So for me, for example, in the morning, I have a routine. Finally, because often for years I was trying to have a routine but didn't work out. But finally, I found a routine where I do some yoga practice and meditation and some belly muscle training, and that lifts me up immediately to start the day in a good mood.
And we mentioned about your diverse, multicultural exposure that you've had in your earlier years as well. So tell us a bit more about what experiences in your earlier life shaped that leadership style that developed for you. It was very clear what it was you were here to do in terms of sharing wisdom, but in terms of the way you led yourself and others through that, just talk to us about that.
Yeah, thank you so much for the wonderful question. So, I think I'm the youngest of seven. In my father had seven kids, and he passed away this year, but he was 93 years old, had a very rich life. But I've always seen myself as well. He was my best friend and my mentor, and I think that really shaped mainly the way I, in general, look into life, and thereby as well my leadership style. Um, I think the biggest learning for me was to have a positive look, an optimistic look. So he really taught me that no matter what happens in life, also the difficult parts, there is, if you lose the judgment around that, there is a wonderful learning within that. And that was a very calming view, whereby, yeah, of course, life goes with its ups and downs, but I think that really shaped me to understand that if life is complex, I'm not going to dwell in that or think think badly about what may happen, but I always tend to think, okay, amazing, it might not feel really nice at the moment, but there is something that I can give meaning to in a different way. So these questions about what's the meaning of things, or some existential questions, I think those were very important for me, that I got out of the basically my education. That is helpful, and also knowing that that way of looking into life changes over time. So also when I look at my own different phases of life, the way I thought about anything, about myself, about connecting with the world, that is always changing over time. And that on itself is also, I think, a very relieving feeling, because thereby I have a strong sense that I can change my own narrative. I am not my narrative. I am not my story. Yeah.
Has that always been with you, Luce, in terms of because the environment you grew up in, or did it come to you at some point when you were mature enough to really understand that deeply?
Well, and very often it's still not with me. I mean, this is like one of those things, it's knowledge, but are you living it? Huh? No, of course not. No, I as a child, for example, I was super afraid. Um, if I would go and meet a group of people, my hands would totally be wet already. I was a very introvert person, and also I had my share of own childhood trauma going on, and very young on to become a therapist was probably not a conscious decision, but I was in my family trying to deal with a manic depressed mother, and a lot of things that were pretty extreme happening with aggression and psychosis, and a lot of things that were happening with her. And I took it on to be the one that is trying to restore harmony in the family. And then, of course, those kind of happenings create a shadow, right? This is this lovely word that psychologists love to use, but I do like it. Like, the more you grow, and also as a leader, and let's say the more you stand in your light, that's one of those expressions, automatically there's also a shadow. And I think I really had to learn, and maybe that's something pretty recently, that your own shadow, if you lose the judgment, is on itself totally fine. And the more curious I got to my shadow, the more present I could be in the here, and also the less my story is influencing me unconsciously. So this whole journey of self-awareness, not just what you like in life and your purpose, but maybe even more, what are the shadows that have been forming you? What are the things that happen to you? And if you are embracing that enough, then for me at least, I'm starting to understand that is bringing me more in the present moment and getting me. It's also totally fine to not know something, or to have an unpleasant feeling, and within that, just be more yourself, be more authentic.
I'm starting to feel emotional now with you sharing that, so I really appreciate you sharing that part of your story. When did you first notice, I guess as a 20 or in your 30s, where this earlier experiences you'd had of trying to bring harmony to that environment were maybe impacting on your ability to lead in difficult circumstances? When did you first start to notice those challenges?
So yeah, pretty young. It was giving me an advantage, or at least I perceived it as an advantage. I was very young when I started to study, and pretty young when all of a sudden I was like some kind of head of psychology in a psychiatry department or psychotherapy place, etc. And I noticed that I am dealing pretty well with crisis. So in that moment I get into action moments, and I'm not so quickly scared away of certain things. And maybe in combination with that optimism of my father, I think that was working positively for me. Yeah. Can you maybe rephrase maybe
Yeah,
a
I
next
think the
question?
things that we find where a lot of people that we come across are driven to
Yeah.
be successful by some of the things that happen to us, as you say, to go into that mode. And then we get to a point where we find that actually it's not serving us as well, maybe as we thought in our key relationships. So for me, for example, I had to work very hard, and my father taught me that. He worked away from home. My mother had a nervous breakdown. And so for me, I had to become very resourceful and self-sufficient and driven and feel as I was looking after people. But that also shut me off from a lot of people because I didn't trust them. So it was very self-serving for a successful period of time. But after that, sustain that was very difficult. So we all have our own stories. With that, I just wondered what yours was.
Yeah, no, I get. So yeah, I think for me, because I I noticed that for me to control the environment, and I wanted to control it, because if I would not control it, I basically would not trust what is happening, and also would not trust my parents in what was happening. That I became a pleaser. So in that sense, I was very aware if there was any tension in the room, to make sure that that tension is harmonized again. And I think what that did is that in certain ways I have being so protective, and that I forgot to truly trust the other person. So it is actually difficult thereby to absolutely open my heart and be in a deep connection with somebody else. And I think that one of the reasons for that I, for example, also got a divorce before twice already. One of the things is that I was not very much in touch with my own heart. So how do you go from that me to that we space? And I think in a leadership position, this is such an important thing, because you can think, and I thought, "Oh, I'm just going to become an expert, I'm going to be good in what I do, and then it will all work out." Huh? But I think the reality of it is true. Potential lies in collective wisdom and collaboration, and in that we space, it is very important to become self-aware of these kind of shadows and these kind of stories of yourself, where I think for me, trying to be in control and not really trusting the other person leads to disconnects, and thereby, for example, I found it very difficult to give critical feedback to people, also to receive critical feedback maybe, but to be slightly too sweet in that sense, and then thinking that that is solving a relationship, while then in the end, if, for example, you need to fire somebody, I got often the feedback, well, why didn't you tell me that before? Huh? So why didn't you just share that with me? So I think that is one of the things where, for me, the more and more I start to be aware that being nice or being a pleasing and a nurturing leadership style is actually as well for me sort of like a hidden way to escape for crisis in my world, in my story from my childhood, is not serving me as a leader. And to step into being aware of that, also being more curious thereby about what is not working out in the situation, and being more honest in my conversations. And that is pretty recently that I'm practicing that more and more, is leading to deeper connections, what is very, for me, very fulfilling, leading to me being more vulnerable, but as well seeing the reality of what is, and thereby getting more into collaboration with my employees or my friends or wherever I go. Yeah.
We have a lot in common in the sense that I went to see my therapist, and she said to me, Andrew, you always speak about I, it's never we. And I never really thought about that. And it wasn't her saying to me, you're selfish. It's just, there's just one lens that's always about you, which is very interesting. So it's a very interesting journey when, as leaders, we go from I to we and then to us, which is obviously, I know, a large part of your work now, which we'll come on to. But what supported you the most as you were adapting this leadership style, becoming aware, recognizing it was we, wanting deeper connection? What support did you have around you to help you do that?
Yeah, many things. I really enjoy community, and that's of course also one of the reasons why I choose to have my business around the community. But to be truly with different kind of perspectives is absolutely eye-opening. It is not always easy to just become conscious or just to be awake, because we have not for nothing our blind spots and hidden things, and like, let's not go there, right? But through the stories of other people, like also what we are now doing, I think it's just easier to be open, and also for me to then slowly start to be more curious about my shadow sides, or the things that I just find difficult in life, and how that is truly affecting other people, to get that feedback from other people and to be open for that. I think that's part of it, and then maybe the other part is just life itself, right? So I'm now 44, and I do feel it gets easier to don't care that much if I'm afraid, so it's not that important if what is that I make a mistake, or I think that's also just a natural process. Yeah.
Yeah, we're being kinder
But
to ourselves.
close friends and and close relationships with like-minded and like-hearted other leaders is for me the big learning. Yeah.
And it's, as you say, being kind to ourselves as we get older, and recognizing that we can't, I guess, be who we want to be all of the time. Maybe share a little bit with our audience. You talked about pleaser before, and lots of people out there will be aware of Sherza Shamin's work around saboteurs and positive intelligence. it links back a little bit to what you were saying
Yeah.
before around being discerning rather than being judgmental, but being in the right mindset for that. So just share with us, how do you try and maintain that mindset for longer periods?
Yeah, I mean, I love the Saboteur test. I absolutely enjoy it, and the good thing about being a psychologist, the bad thing thereby, is that you can play all of them, right? I think I can manipulate any of these, and especially myself.
Absolutely.
So I'm a trained Saboteur user, I would say. And have a very strong judge. I was absolutely not aware of it. So also going through that program, also maybe that's, by the way, another thing that I do spend a lot of time on personal development, and I stay curious, right? I don't see this as it's a never ending story. Um, is yeah, to become aware of your own judgments. Wow, that was not an easy one for me. It's so nice also to have this spiritual ego. I'm all fine. I don't do that, or maybe, but to see and accept that. And I think it was so easy to just blame the other person, and then to say, oh, wait a second, this is my own projection, or I'm actually really tough for myself. That was, yeah, that took me some time to accept that. um, I enjoy to do this also with my partner. So I thought you spoke about Stefan a little bit, and he's also my co-founder in my company. But more than that, I really see him as my deepest buddy, going through life and exploring life itself. So we together do a lot of personal development journeys. Every quarter, we basically find something and go ahead, and then to really be curious about each other's beauty and what you want to be, your authenticity, but as well in your pain body and this inner child that is in life just recurringly coming back. Because sometimes you think, okay, I've done that, check, I did my whatever coaching, I went to India, I did my yoga, whatever it is that we do, and it's all beautiful. And then life hits you again, right? As if it just keeps on testing, so now and then. And maybe every time you can go a little bit deeper, or heal a little bit deeper, or embrace a little bit more in life, and thereby also in other people. So I am finding that very valuable, to have somebody next to me, and being able to having conversations about these kind of vulnerable things, and maybe hinting to each other so now and then if you don't see it. But the saboteurs, they will always stay for me. I maybe I used to think I had this idea of this dream world, and everybody and everything is just beautiful, but I think I start to be more like it's like the weather. There is sunshine and there will be clouds again. But do you become the clouds, or can you start to be more aware, just watching the cloud coming by and be okay with that? And I think that's a life journey on itself. Yeah.
I want to go back to something you mentioned right at the start. You were very clear about your purpose when you were very young, and it was obviously sharing this wisdom. And then you also said, not everyone needs to have a purpose. And I agree with you. But do you think that actually most people do have purpose? It's just they're not necessarily always connected to it?
I think purpose, it's a very difficult word, right? Because I think and everybody looks different in the world. The way I look into the world, I'm a strong believer that everybody has something beautiful, like a different color of the rainbow, or a different part of the puzzle piece, that is here present, and that life itself is maybe just a journey to rediscover that. What is it that makes me happy and alive and passionate into life? And then we call that maybe purpose. What can be many things. It can be that I want to go and change the world, or it can be I want to have a very successful company, but can also be I want to be an amazing mother, or I just want to enjoy and chill out in life. So without judgment there again. But I do think everybody has something special, to, yeah, to be yourself again. I would say so. But on the other hand, the concept that you need to know in life, this North Star where you're heading to, and also because I'm a coach, I do know that a lot of people actually don't have that, but they have a judgment that they should have that. And well, and I more and more start to think, well, maybe that's not the case. Maybe it's more about in the moment, living yourself and sensing what you want to sense, instead of going somewhere in the future towards something. So I'm doubled about that word purpose. Yeah.
And if people are listening to this or watching this and they've really connected with your story and they feel there's something within them that actually they're here to do on this planet, and yet they're limiting themselves in some way, either due to perceived limitations around environment or financial or whatever it might be. What advice would you give to those people out there that maybe want to move but actually are feeling reticent in doing so?
Well, one, I would congratulate them by feeling that. I think that's where it starts, to be aware of this, and also know you're not alone in that. Because I think within this journey there comes this phase when all of a sudden whatever you used to do, it's not fulfilling so much anymore, or you start to have questions, and then often in your life people are not like that, and it can feel really alone. But maybe just to say, well, congratulations. I think something amazing is about to happen. It's super fulfilling to go on the journey of that, I think. As well, you don't need to do this alone, because there's many other happily leaders on this consciousness development journey, or becoming more aware of themselves, wanting to do some inner work, knowing as well that once whatever you want to do outside in the world has a direct reflection with what's happening inside of yourself. So if you start to be more curious about your own story, and is the story that I have in my mind, my thoughts, are they actually really true, right? Is that really what's happening? And also, is that the story that is leading to the future where I want to go to, or can I maybe adjust that? I think this is such a beautiful path. It's not always easy. That would be the other thing that I would tell them.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes with, I think, for me at least, often with a lot of fulfillment and meaning. Life becomes more meaningful, also the more difficult parts. But it's not easy because, well, one, the ego fights back. I always say your psychology would love to stay in the comfort zone and not go to all those parts that they on purpose were hiding away or so. And it is sometimes also very challenging and confronting. I have a lot of stories around me also where, for example, one person starts to do this and is curious about themselves, but then their partners or their system around them is not at all, and they don't accept that, for example. Huh? So it does take courage, I would say. Yeah.
I agree, and what I can relate to there is many people I've seen who started to live their purpose. As you say, there are times where it's difficult, and sometimes they feel as though nobody's listening to them, or actually, is this really going to be what people need or want? And sometimes they're ahead of their time, and I think it's that belief, isn't it, and perseverance and recognition that actually they are here for a reason. That's what I've noticed in a lot of people.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I get very enthusiastic about this, and I made that my life's purpose, to connect with people that are on that journey, and just to know that that there are also people out there that thereby are influencing everybody around them. Because I think the more we become more aware of ourselves, also the easier it is to connect with other people. And I think that's what the world so much needs, right? So if you really look at, I think for me at least, at currently at the world and what's happening, I would say it makes a lot of sense for us to start to be very deeply connecting first with ourselves, and thereby it will be easier to care about your neighbors, but also care about people that you might even never see or never meet, but still feel compassionate about our differences, and having an empathy for everybody having their own story that's happening in life. And I am a very optimistic person about the future of our planet and the solutions that I do think leaders need to make with each other, in creating a sustainable world where some of the pain that is currently happening in the world might not be needed. Yeah. What starts with self-awareness. And that's our conversation, I guess, for today.
No, absolutely. And what I love about your saying is it's something that we already have as human beings, because obviously when humans were around in the first place, it's what we did. We connected, obviously, not just with ourselves, but with nature and the universe. So I love what you're saying. We just need to rediscover that. That leads us nicely into my final question to you, Loes, today, which is about your future. You're 44 years old now, a lot more to give, obviously, in terms of your purpose. So what is it you're going to be particularly in service of in the next few years? And if people want to come and join you in doing that, just tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, one is for me really for this year, walking my own talk. I think that's front and center. So, yeah, with me for the Argonauts community is really something that I am, yeah, living and breathing. Huh? So I want to be really present with the community. I want to discover together and grow as a community. How does conscious living really look like? How does conscious friendship look like? How does conscious capitalism look like? What is it that is possible if we would start to support and collaborate in different ways between organizations and, for example, politics? So for me, my core vision for this year is to deeply empower and be curious about the community and grow out the community in that sense. And yeah, I think it's experimental in that way as well, in thinking about how would we like to be in the world. So and it can be very small. How do I like to be a mother? How would I like to take care of my own body, as well as, for example, what is my responsibility in my own system and community around me, and how can I live that and not just talk about it, for example. So that would be that, and I would love to connect and always support other people that are on the journey of of finding more aliveness within themselves and thereby also within the world, knowing that there's many other people like you, and it's just very fun. That's one, and it's very exponential growth possible if you do that together and if you learn from each other's stories. Because everything seems to be so known and alive, so unique, but in the end, we are now in like 66 countries, and in the end, people are people, right? We go through the same things, and that is just lovely to know that that there is a connecting factor between all the different cultures. Yeah.
What's the best way for people to find out more about the Argonauts?
Yeah, sure. Well, you can take a look at the website, to search for the Argonauts. That would be a wonderful way. And we have a sort of like a free taste of the Argonauts, where you can just have a conversation and be part of meeting also some of the other people that are part of the community, and sharing your story. I think that would be the easiest way. Yeah.
I've experienced the community, and what I love about the Argonauts community is that the people that are in the community are very respectful. They give space to each other. There's really a sense of responsibility in consciousness in that sense. So yeah, I think people who are listening to this and want to experience it, as you say, there's an easy way to do that. I would encourage them to do it. Well, Loes, I really appreciate you sharing your experiences with today. Time has flown by. We've come to the end of our time together. I know that many of the people that have been listening to this and watching this as well on YouTube would have been inspired to reflect on their own journey, where they are right now, what their own leadership style is about the way they lead themselves and also others, and how they might maybe want to just take a different approach to that by becoming more conscious about how they're living their lives today. So I really appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you.
It's wonderful talking to you.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Confessions of a Successful Leader. You can access all previous episodes of the show at confessionsofaSuccessfulLeader.com. If you are interested in finding out more about conscious leadership and self-coaching, just type in Andrew Tallents into LinkedIn or your favorite browser, and you'll find my contact details and all the content that you need. Until next time, don't forget to stay present, curious, and above all, conscious.